We'll let you know I'm not.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Jack, we are now live on YouTube and we can begin our Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. So I'll turn it over to you, Jack.
Great. Fantastic. Thanks everyone for joining and joining a little bit earlier than our regular time here today. We have two items on our agenda. One is a staple application continuing from last meeting, and a second is an update on IBX from an MTA representative. I think we'll turn it over to PS 185 to talk about their cultural fair and the application.
Sure. And we'll introduce the principal who's here.
I'm talking this way. Hi. Hi, my name is Rena Gudelius. I'm the principal of PS 185. I want to thank you for having us. We are interested in having a cultural fair on May 17th, and we're looking to close Ridge Boulevard between 87th Street and 88th Street. So I do have my committee here. Well, here she comes. We have our committee here to talk to you about location. Talk a little bit about what we're planning. We have Catherine Crabtree and Christina Marasco is here to just talk to you a little bit about what we're planning.
Okay, hi everyone. We are hoping this year to extend our cultural fair that we do every year just for the school to our community. Our goal is to open up Ridge Boulevard between 86th and 88th Street to everyone in our community to showcase the amazing cultures that are all over Bay Ridge, and not just within our school, but in our whole community, and bring families and anyone from our community to PS 185 to share cultures and teach each other and learn about each other's traditions. And to do that, we're hoping to incorporate food vendors. We've already reached out to a few local restaurants. All the food vendors who are potentially coming or participating would be permitted, have the appropriate permits to serve food. We've already reached out to places like Aya and Brooklyn Roots, and they've shown interest. We're also hoping to showcase some traditional dance, theater from all cultures. We've reached out to a few dance troupes and have some storytelling and musical performances. We also want to have arts and crafts stations and games. And then we also want to provide community resources, and we're hoping, or not hoping, but we've already spoken to Bay Ridge Cares about helping us provide some community resources at the event. And then overall, the most important thing is we just want to emphasize celebration of diversity and inclusivity and welcoming everyone in our community to this event. And I'll pass to Christina. You can kind of go through the run of our show.
So thank you, Catherine. You explained it beautifully. So this cultural fair has come out of 2 years ago at PS 185. We had our 100th anniversary, and in conjunction with that, we did a cultural fair during the school day. It was totally parent run. Parents presented their cultures and their heritage in booths. And the children throughout the school day, the whole school went around and visited each booth. And it was such a beautiful and powerful event. We wanted to bring it back this year. So we're going to have the school component during the day, but we wanted to open it up to the greater community and parents from our school in the evening. So the run of show from 5 to 5:30 p.m. We will welcome people. They will come, they will arrive. We will have volunteers to help set up from the school and to help greet people. We will have food vendors. As Catherine said, we have already reached out to some and we're planning on getting more. So first we will eat, and then at around 5:15, from 5:15 to 7:30, we will have live performances. We're connecting with local cultural institutions and dance troupes and such. Also, our wonderful music teacher is planning on doing something with our children and doing a performance. Again, this will be open to the whole community. From 5:30 to 7:30, as the performances and the food is happening, we will have games, we'll have craft tables. This will be set up by most likely parent volunteers and perhaps some cultural institutions and outside vendors. We will also have a DJ. And we will be getting a sound permit for that. That's all covered. And the DJ will be playing music that represent the cultures not only at our school, but in the greater community. Have a little dance party. The whole thing will be wrapped up by 8. We have at 185 a wonderful group of parents who are always willing to volunteer. We will have an army of volunteers helping to clean up the street and wrapping things up on time so it will not disturb the neighbors. And that is the run of show. We also have, yes, Catherine created this beautiful diagram of Ridge Boulevard. So if you all want to take a look, so we are hoping to close 86th and 88th Street. And yep, having the stage right by the school on 86, having food vendors on 87, having seating area throughout the street. And you can see also on the other side of 86, across from the school, there will be like the craft tables. We're hoping to get some henna going, the DJ, face painting. So that's about it. Ms. Gadelius, do you have anything to add or?
It's gonna be a fun event. We had a little taste of it 2 years ago. We just want to open it up now. As Christina said, I mean, the parent volunteers will be there, but also, you know, the staff does also come to participate. We have great custodians who make sure that we will not leave the street, you know, dirty, or we'll clean up. I think it's gonna be a worthwhile event for everyone.
Great. All right, I think we'll open up for questions. I have a couple of my own. So this is the first year that you're expecting to run this, right? Do you expect this to potentially becoming like an annual event or biannual event?
See everybody.
Everybody's I'm sorry, Jack. We must be our internet here.
No worries. Yeah, I think I saw you froze up. So I'll open up for questions. My first question is, it sounds like this is the first year you're doing this event. Do you expect this to become like an annual or biannual event by any chance?
I mean, we're going to see how it goes this year. Yeah, the intention would be, yes.
Annual.
Now, the street event, when you say annual, if you had it next year and the schoolyard is complete, would it be
in the school.
It would be in the schoolyard.
Yes.
So then you would not have to come here.
No.
Okay.
Any questions on the floor?
Larry?
Yeah, Larry.
It's gonna be closing out these Ridge Boulevard. Has the fire department and EMS been notified?
Yes, that's part of the permit application, Larry, is an automatic notification to all agencies that would be involved.
In particular, it's an emergency.
Yeah.
Doing everything.
They're required under the permit to maintain an emergency lane.
So I'm in contact with the police once a week. We do meet just to discuss things that are happening in the community, so I will make sure they're aware. I'm sure they're gonna be aware anyway, but when I do call them and say, you know, 185 is having an event, police presence, it's there, so.
Fire, you know,
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're part of the
sorry.
automatic notification. We typically also ask that applicants who host festivals notify the neighbors. You know, maybe we could do, you know, a lit drop in advance of the event, so they're aware of what the hours of the street closure are.
Yeah. When we started Open Streets this year, we did the same where we handed out flyers, we put flyers on cars to notify all the neighbors of the plan and when the times, so we could do the same.
Great, and we do a notification once we have this hearing to the public, and we didn't hear any feedback, but we want to make sure those that are right on the block just are aware on that day.
Of
course. In advance of the day.
Right.
Speaking about street closures, so the application show the time of 1 to 9 p.m. Will the street be closed the entire time? Because I know you also mentioned that the event starts at 5.
Well, it's gonna be closed because of the school. We'd like to do a school event so the children can participate during the day. And then we want to keep it open, you know, for the night for the community.
There was
Got it.
some talk, I was speaking with Chris at Justin Brennan's office because we hold a permit for Ridge between 86th and 87th, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is the only block that we would want to close down as we usually do for the school event. And then we wanted to open it to both blocks for the evening event. So there was some confusion because DOT holds our permit for open streets for our daytime recess. So when I applied for the SAPO permit, I was trying to work out with Chris because there was some confusion. So that if you see something on your end, it might be because of that. We were trying to smooth that out.
So just to clarify, it would be one street that would be closed for like the 4-hour period between 1 and 5, and then both streets would be closed between 5 and 9.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, any other questions? Okay. And then are there any potential stipulations that anything want? Go ahead, Steve.
No, I just, it's kind of a weird question, but are any of you alums of 185?
No.
My husband is.
No alums from 185, right?
But a parent of one.
And my husband is.
Yes, our children go there. We
Right.
entrust our children.
My husband's an alum.
Crowd 102 alum.
And Justin Brannan's an alum.
Oh, yeah, my son's an alum, that's why I was wondering. You know, I thought I heard Christina Rossi there.
Oh, it's Christina Morosco.
Moraska, okay, I saw it, okay, because Christina Rossi went to school with him,
Maybe that's
like about
clear.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, you know, long time ago.
We do need a motion to approve. The only thing, I guess, in terms of stipulation from the district office is if we could just, you know, just mention, you know, that you will agree to provide a flyer to the neighbors
Yes.
in advance of the event.
Yes.
I think that's what we
Yes.
would ask, unless anyone else has any additions, someone could do a motion.
At the end of the event, they will clean up, or sanitation, or both, or?
We will.
Usually it's the school, yeah, the
Yeah.
sponsor
Okay.
does the cleanup. I mean, there'll be street cleaning, you know, during the daytime, but I don't imagine, you know, and then each of the vendors will be responsible for their cleanup.
Our plan was to be in charge of cleanup.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the only stipulation we really want to add there potentially is like clean up by 9, because that's when the application closes, and then that'd be like an hour and a half to clean up. Not sure if that would be necessary given the agreements here, but we can add that if you want. Okay, any motions for, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you said to clean up by 9?
Right.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved,
Okay, so moved, if that's Dan.
Second.
Steve.
All right, so we need a vote then?
Okay, so the motion is to approve this application after, you know, the broader board approves, with 2 stipulations. One is to do a flyer for the neighbors around the school, and the second is to clean up by 9 p.m. All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, I see broad agreement here. All no's.
We hope that you come by.
Seeing none. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you
May
very much.
17th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay,
Have a good night. Thank you. Okay, Jack, we're ready to move on.
Okay, I see we have Nick and Jordan from MTA here. So I think, yeah, so ready for the update on IBX here. So Nick, Jordan, whoever.
Thanks so much for having us. Really appreciate it. I especially appreciate that you're letting us do this remote. I wish I could be there in the room with you, but I appreciate it. I've got, this is dinner and bath time for the toddlers in my house. So if you hear screaming in the background, I apologize. Can you hear me in the room?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, hey, how are you? And I'm going to share my screen now. And I just need you to tell me that you can see it. Can you
We're
see
good?
it in the room?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. So again, my name is Nick Rollison. If you don't know me, I'm the Assistant Director of Government and Community Relations for the MTA. I cover South Brooklyn. And we're here today. I'm here with my colleague, Jordan Smith, who is with the IBX project team. And we're here today to talk about the IBX, the Interborough Express. We really appreciate the invitation to come talk about this project. It's a project that we're very excited about. Hopefully you'll hear in the presentation our passion for this project. We'll tell you a little bit about what this project is, where we are, what we've done so far, and where we're going to be going for the next few years. And then obviously at the end of this presentation, we'll take questions, and Jordan's going to help me with any of the technical questions that you may have. So let's begin. Let's talk a little bit about the IBX. What is the IBX? So the Interborough Express, we like to say, would be a transformative new connection between Brooklyn and Queens. And this would be on an existing rail corridor. This is the rail corridor that you may be familiar with in the cut that is currently owned by CB10. It's currently owned by Long Island Railroad, and we have New York and Atlantic Railway operating on that right of way. This is along by 65th Street. It starts at the terminal there. It goes through Bay Ridge, and you can see on the map it cuts through all of central Brooklyn, and it goes north into Queens. So this is a totally existing right of way, which is very exciting for us. It would add passenger service while preserving freight service. That's an important point, that we believe that the freight and the passenger rail can operate in unison here on the line. And the northern portion of the line that's in Queens is operated by CSX. So just a little bit about the area that we're talking about here. We define the project corridor. You're going to hear me talk about the project corridor. We define that as a half a mile from the right of way. So, you could think half a mile north and a half a mile south. What we find when we talk about this area is that it's a very diverse area. 7 in 10 people who live in this area are people of color. 50% of the households in the study area are a zero-car household. 30% of the households live below 150% of the poverty line. And 1 in 4 residents who live within a half mile of the corridor do not speak English as their primary language in their home, which is interesting to point out. We also have a high concentration of jobs and people. You're going to hear more about that in a minute. We're anticipating a lot of population growth here in this area over the next 30 years, and we're also expecting a lot of job opportunities to come to this area in the next several years. Over here on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see sort of a circular motion with a lot of numbers on the screen, and I'll sort of cut to the chase that the big number there is really the 86,000, which is part of the ridership studies that we've looked at, that a large number of people who we've interviewed and spoken to about this project are looking to make trips throughout Brooklyn. So this is not only an opportunity to connect Brooklyn and Queens, but it's also an opportunity to expand transportation options just within the borough of Brooklyn itself. So this is just a hypothetical case study that we like to talk about to highlight the benefits of the Interborough Express. So this is following an individual, Raheem, who's going from his house in Flushing to take a class at Brooklyn College in Midwood. So today, Raheem wakes up, he leaves his house at 8:27 a.m. He walks to Flushing Main Street on the 7 line. He goes into Times Square 42nd Street to catch the Q, which you may notice is not the direction he wants to go, right? We call that an inefficient route. He's going in a direction he doesn't want to go. And then he takes the Q from Times Square to Avenue H. He walks the 7 minutes to Brooklyn College, and he arrives at his class at 9:48. With the Interborough Express, he can sleep in or have a good breakfast. He can leave his house later at 8:55. He can walk to the 7 train at Flushing Main Street and then catch the Interborough Express at 74th and Roosevelt. Then he would just take a 27-minute ride to Flatbush Avenue, make a 6-minute walk, and he would be at his class at the exact same time as his previous commute. So this is about 30 minutes saved, and that's 30 minutes saved in one direction. So that's an hour saved every day. And you could imagine how much benefit that would be for this individual throughout his week, his month, et cetera. So we've conducted our environmental planning study. In 2023, Governor Hochul announced the results of that planning study. And what that study told us was that it selected the transit mode, it identified the potential station locations, and it advanced our engineering, planning, and environmental evaluation. And that's really what we're going to focus on here today. So just a quick discussion about mode selection. You can see here we had a serious discussion about whether to use light rail, conventional rail, or bus rapid transit. Bus rapid transit, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. It's about riding buses, but we found that there were some serious concerns about bus rapid transit, which is that you can see right there on the screen, the capacity is 1/4 of a light rail train. There's also concerns about turning the buses around. Conventional rail, that's you could think of like a New York City Transit subway car or a Long Island Railroad vehicle. But again, that would be a heavier infrastructure along the right of way. And there would be some constraints there. The cars themselves would be bigger, so there would be a lot more concerns about constructability. You can see there would be concerns about tunneling too with those larger trains. So light rail provided the best option, both from a cost perspective, capacity, constructability, and everything else. Light rail was just the clear winner. You can see here, we're anticipating that end to end, this light rail would take 39 minutes. So that's, if you get on in Jackson Heights, it would take you 39 minutes to get to Bay Ridge and vice versa. 360 passenger capacity of each light rail train, and we're projecting 115,000 daily weekday riders for this train. You can see here on this map, we're talking about some station locations, some that are particular to CB10. Obviously, we have the terminal, and then we would have the connection to the 4th Avenue line by the Bay Ridge Ave station. But then, of course, this would continue to 8th Ave, New Utrecht, McDonald, and you can sort of see, you can follow the line all the way through until we get to Queens, where we start going to Myrtle Avenue, Elliott, Grand Avenue, and then ending up at Roosevelt Avenue, like we discussed earlier. And I like this map because something that I always like to talk about when I'm talking about this is that, the legacy transit system is, I always like to describe it, I don't know if you can see me in the room, but I like to describe it like the hand, your hand, is that we have all of these lines that go into one main location, which is Manhattan, but we don't really have a system for connecting all of the lines that are, the fingers that are on the outside of the hand. And so the IBX gives us an opportunity to make all of these connections so that you can go through Brooklyn and you can connect to Queens faster than making, as I mentioned, the inefficient trip through Manhattan.
Nick, would you be able to transfer between the IBX and these lines with a Metro card?
That is with the Metro card, that's
or Omni, sorry.
Yeah, that's what we're discussing right now, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The plan is to have this be part of the connected MTA system, but we still have to go through an environmental review process, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So we would connect to 17 lines, 13 stations that have direct subway transfers, 51 current bus routes that are connected to the line. And then, of course, we have our Long Island Railroad connection at we called it Atlantic Avenue. It's the East New York station. It's Broadway Junction. So that's where the Long Island Railroad would connect. How did we come up with these stations? So there was a robust public feedback where we got over 1,000 people who left pin drops about where they wanted to have stations and other considerations for the line. Obviously, we looked at ridership. We looked at where people would be able to make the most efficient transfers. Constructability, that goes back to your question, Jack, about we wanted to make sure that we were connecting to stations where we could easily have a connection to an existing station, because along the right of way, we do connect to other stations where the constructability makes it a little more difficult. And then spacing, of course, we want to make sure that the stations are spaced appropriately apart. So that's just that was sort of our methodology for how we came up with where these stations were conceptualized. So this is a neat map where we studied where people who would be taking the IBX, where they would originate their journey from and where they're going to. So this map on the left with the sort of blue heat map talks about where people are beginning their trip. And you can see there's sort of this heavy concentration throughout central Brooklyn by Brooklyn College, Midwood, even extending north into Queens, into sort of that Glendale, Ridgewood, Maspeth area. And then, but of course, it follows the whole line straight through by Bay Ridge. You can see over there on the left. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see where where we were imagining that people would be taking the train to. And again, no surprises here. You know, I always like to point out that the places where people are trying to go are schools and jobs, right? And transportation. The heaviest uses are the Army terminal there, the Brooklyn College. You can see LaGuardia Airport is highlighted as well. So, you know, these are all places where we think that people are would be excited to get to with this new line. If you've been following the political news at all, in the state address that the governor gave this year, she had announced that we were going to be moving forward with our engineering phase. The budget is also including $45 million to help make this a reality. We're very excited to have the support from the governor. She also mentioned this project in her last State of the State address. So we're very excited to be working with our partners in Albany to make sure that this project is coming to fruition. So this is just a little bit of a timeline of where we are. You know, at the beginning here, you can see we review the project details with the stakeholders and incorporate feedback. That's sort of a step zero. That's what we're always doing. We're always incorporating feedback. We're always going to be meeting with the public and talking to people who are going to be using this line. Next, we finalized planning study, identified optimal project mode. Again, that was our process by which we selected the stations, the light rail component. So that phase is complete. We included this in our comparative evaluations in our 20-year needs assessment. You can see more about that on our website, but that is finished as well. So that brings us to where we are now, which is the environmental review and design and engineering. This is a process that's going to take about 2 years, give or take. You know, that's the ballpark. And this is basically where we're going to study everything. So you know, everybody asks me questions like, what about this pipeline? What about how this station is going to be constructed? What about ADA access here? You know, all of these questions about engineering and construction are what this environmental review process is going to handle. And so that's the phase that we're entering into now. Obviously, the next phase is that we have to put this into the next capital program. The MTA has a 4-year capital program cycle. Right now, we're in the 2020 to 2024 cycle. So this would be looked at for the next capital program, 25 to 29. And then obviously after that, we would finalize design and begin construction. And then of course, at the bottom there, you can see public and stakeholder outreach will be conducted throughout the process. And I want to highlight that point here with the EIS. So this is specifically about the environmental review process. I'm not going to sit here and read this whole thing here on the screen, but you know, this process involves scoping and screening, creating a draft EIS, and then putting out a final EIS at the end of the process. And you'll see these little comment bubbles here on the screen. These are all points throughout the EIS where we're going to be soliciting public feedback, you know, official comment periods for the IBX from the public. So throughout this whole process, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from the community that, you know, through all the communities that this line is going to go through. And we want to make sure that this project is something that is, you know, integrated into the community and provides services that the people really want to see. So just in terms of public outreach, we've done a bunch of public outreach events over the course of the last few months. Nearby, we had the event in November 30th in Sunset Park, the Weedy Catering Hall. We had a great turnout there. We were very grateful that our chairman, Jano Lieber, was there. It was a great event, but we've also done events throughout the whole line, and we're going to continue doing events throughout the year. We're going to be looking at you know, more open house style events. We're also going to be looking at pop-up events, and so stay tuned. You'll hear from us about events in your area. This is just a review of some of the comments we've heard. We've had over 300 attendees at our open houses. We've received over 450 comments, 97% of which were positive. And again, I'm not going to read everything here on the screen, but the thing that I want to point out are the comments where somebody says, I would love to consider jobs at NYU Langone, Industry City, Brooklyn Army Terminal. From Bushwick, this would be a game changer. Or this one down here where somebody said, I live in Brooklyn. However, Queens College is the only CUNY college that has my major. The IBX would make the transit for people like me much easier. So again, just highlighting these points that this line really has the opportunity to make transformative connections to job centers and to education centers. So how can people participate in feedback? How can you give feedback? We have, if you go to our project page, new.mta.info/IBX, you can see all of this information that I'm talking about here today. But importantly, we have a virtual engagement tool where you can literally place pins on a map and tell us whatever you want to tell us. I always like to say that, the people who know their neighborhood best are the people who live there. And so I'm sure that, the project team would love to hear from you about how, this line would impact your specific block, your specific neighborhood. Of course, we're always going to have ongoing updates with our elected officials, our community boards. We've been to the borough boards. We've been meeting with other agencies. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to begin pop-up engagements, starting, in the next couple of months. So thank you very much. That's a very brief overview of the IBX. I'll leave this up on the screen for just a minute. Again, the project webpage is new.mta.info/IBX. That's where you can find all of the information that I just said, plus much, much more. And you can always email our outreach team here at ibxoutreach@mtacd.org. Those emails go to our project team, so me and Jordan will see those emails, and we would love to hear from you. We would love to hear feedback. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, and I will turn it back over to Jack for Q&A.
Okay, yeah, I'll turn it on to the floor for Q&A then. Feel free to raise your hand. Oh, Danielle, go ahead.
Thank you guys so much for that. That was really helpful. And I know that probably a couple of the things that I'm going to ask about right now are going to come up during the EIS, but I just sort of wanted to get them on your radar.
Yeah.
The first thing is, this sort of Bay Ridge portion of what would be the IBX. It crosses under the BQE, which sort of, rises up out of the Bay Ridge Trench around, I think it's like 65th Street.
Yep.
So I just wanted to see, what your guys' plans are for coordination with the DOT on that. Obviously, they're re-envisioning the BQE right now. So just sort of wanted to understand what that might look like.
That's a great question. Generally speaking, yes, we are always going to be in communication with DOT about this project. We have the overpasses in Bay Ridge, but of course, there are several other considerations. We're going to have to come to street level up in Queens, so we're going to have to coordinate with DOT throughout this entire line. Generally speaking, we are planning on running the line on an existing, there's already freight running through this line, right? So we're aware of how these trains are going to move through under the pedestrian bridges and throughout the area. So generally speaking, yes. But again, as you said, this is something that the EIS is going to look at more specifically. Jordan, did you have anything to add about coordination with DOT?
Yeah, it's a good point. And, one of the things we've done from the early days of this project, we started, as Nick noted, feasibility study started back in 2020. So we've been in a planning phase since then and really kind of moving into engineering and design and environmental now. But one of the things we've done is we've kept DOT pretty close. So we actually have a meeting with them this Friday. There are a lot of bridges and underpasses that the IBX will touch, and all of those will need to be coordinated with DOT, who owns the majority of those bridges.
Cool. No, that's great. I just sort of wanted to flag that since they're, working on re-envisioning the BQE as well. The other question was, you noted that Brooklyn Army Terminal is sort of going to be one of the main destinations. Obviously, we also have the ferry there, which is operated by the city. But I just wanted to see if you guys had explored or were planning to explore any options for sort of making it easier for people to connect with the ferry at Brooklyn Army Terminal.
So that's a larger conversation, right? Because we have a lot of areas where MTA, buses and subways connect with the ferry system. Right now, they're not integrated. Of course, this is a conversation that is continuously, it's always evolving, it's always changing. We're going to continue to have conversations with the city to explore opportunities to make those connections. But right now, it's still two separate systems. Jordan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been doing in the phase we're in now is really kind of putting a finer point on where exactly our stations would be located. At Brooklyn Army Terminal, one of the benefits, obviously the terminal itself, you've got the ferry connection, which is kind of on the northern side of the terminal, and then you've got NYU Langone, which is just beyond that. So depending on where we can put the station at Brooklyn Army Terminal, I think the goal is to make it as close as possible, both to the users of the terminal, the users of the ferry, and NYU Langone. So in other words, as far north as we can at the site, that is feasible to capture all of those users.
Thank you.
Jack, Larry has a question. Larry Stelter.
Well, there's a comment. I know, as the follow-up what Daniel's talked about, a lot of our commentators have said the future of transportation, public transportation, is intermodal usage, and I would emphasize it would be futile just dead end the line at the Brooklyn Army Terminal, and then not have a connection to the ferry, to either the ferries to Manhattan and to Staten Island. Get the other boroughs, other boroughs involved, especially the Staten Island. It would be a very convenient way, instead of taking the buses to get right down to St. George. On the north end, as far as interconnecting, I know there's been talk of a similar line, Interborough Express. I think an earlier incarnation had it starting out in Co-op City or City Island in the Bronx, and then coming down on the what used to be the New Haven line, then over the Hellgate Bridge. And then the discussion, I don't know, seemed to be where you could continue it even further, maybe even more. You connect with Manhattan and the Bronx as well. Is there any reason why it dead ends in Jackson Heights?
Yes.
There's engineering. I mean, I think it would be almost, I don't know what's been the latest developments of people up in the Bronx with having a service running over into, I don't know if that's Metro North has been considering that, having a service.
So
This as well.
Sorry, we hear you on the connections to the ferry, and that's definitely the kind of feedback that we want to collect from this process. We want to hear from where people want to. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's just dead end on the map. It just dead ends before the ferry, and you're gonna have a difficult connection with the Fourth Avenue subway, because runs right underneath. You can see it from this one place where you can see the bottom, the slope below from the subway. You can see the tracks. To continue, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Nick, can you actually go back to that one map that showed the 17 or so stations and connections?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. That would just be generally useful, I think. Sorry, you were answering the question.
Yeah, so the study area for this project, the area that we're looking at, we kept it to, it's looking at this area between Roosevelt Avenue and Bay Ridge, because this is an area where we have the access to it. The main choke point for running to points north in the Bronx is the Hellgate Bridge. The Hellgate Bridge is owned by Amtrak, and that bridge is going to be at capacity as we continue to build out the Penn Access project. We're building 3 new metro. I think you mentioned we're building 3 new Metro North stations up in the Bronx, and we're anticipating that the amount of trains that are going to go over the Hellgate are going to increase to the point that we wouldn't be able to run excess service from the Interborough Express over the bridge. Jordan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the Hellgate Bridge, as Nick noted, owned by Amtrak. So it'll see Metro North trains, Amtrak trains, as well as CSX trains, which also operate on it. And there just isn't enough space to add the sort of Interborough Express service that we would require. So, 5-minute peak intervals would require 2 additional tracks, which would require a separate parallel bridge, which is, extremely expensive and would require, property acquisition and such.
Okay, I was thinking even to connect even one short, not all the way to the Bronx, but even extend it slightly north from Jackson Heights, where it would make an intermodal connection with, as you mentioned, Amtrak and Metro North, what Metro North is coming up with.
What about
What-
connecting to LaGuardia? Like LaGuardia is right there, right? What about that?
So Jordan, I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that. I mean, generally speaking, the right of way doesn't go into LaGuardia Airport, right? So, you know, we get that comment a lot about connecting to the airport. The line itself doesn't go to the airport, right? It cuts through by, you know, Woodside, goes into Astoria, and then goes over the bridge. You know, with the connection at Roosevelt Avenue, we do think that there is a sufficient connection there to the, I think it's the Q70 select bus, which is free, fare free for people who are making trips to the airport. So we do think that this would expand access to the airport considerably for you know, people coming from especially Point South and Brooklyn. So we do think that this does provide new opportunities to the airport, even though the rail line itself doesn't go directly into the airport. Anything to add to that, Jordan?
Yeah, and you can see that on the origins and destinations map that you had shown earlier, Nick. You know, we actually do show quite a few users traveling to IBX in the AM peak period to LaGuardia Airport.
Sometimes just try to make it more. It was the outer boroughs, more boroughs. That's what I saw at the ferry, and also there's a connection to the airport and to the lines further to the north. That's the way I would just consider that.
Doris, you had your hand raised?
No, that's fine. I changed my mind.
Okay. Just wants to make sure.
Any other hand raised? Don't see anything. I have some other questions, and if that's the case. So there was one comment you made about the line needing to go above ground somewhere in Queens. Can you talk more about like that and why we need to do that?
Yeah, so this is just a matter of engineering along the line. This line is obviously it goes a very long distance over many different geographies through many different neighborhoods, and everywhere it crosses, it has unique challenges as we continue to study. So East New York, for instance, has the old tunnel where the conventional rail cars would have a real tough time getting through. In Queens, up on Metropolitan Avenue, the tracks themselves are at grade. They come to the street level. So it's just a unique challenge that we have in the area that's going to be something we're going to have to study in the environmental review process to see how we're going to you know, proceed with the service through those issues.
Is that included in like the 38 whatever the minutes that you had mentioned? Like that time frame, like if we did not have that above ground and merging into traffic, would that impact the time end to end?
Well, no, the 39-minute time frame that we have there, that's the estimate, includes the you know, the current proposal for the street running on Metropolitan Avenue, so that wouldn't be impacted by that decision. No.
And that there's some engineering. Would that involve some tunneling if you had to find an alternative to street running?
It's you know, right now we're in the environmental review process, so we're willing to look at everything along the line to make this a reality. Obviously, we have to consider, you know, things like constructability and cost, et cetera.
There's a tunnel in the cemetery. There's a tunnel in the cemetery.
I'm sorry.
Tunnel of the cemetery. Is that the problem? It has to go through the cemetery or around it or under it.
The cemetery is in the way of the line. That's right. Yeah, so there's, you know, again, we're looking at all possible options. Right now, the proposal is the street running where we would go onto Metropolitan Avenue. But again, this is something that the environmental review process is going to study, and we'll have an answer at the end of that review.
So I guess there's a possibility that it will not be above ground. There's a possibility that it could go underground, or is that like out of the question at all?
No, I would say, I mean, Jordan, feel free to jump in, but I would say that we're reviewing everything. Anything is possible. That's what the environmental review is for, is to answer the, you know, engineering questions like this about where the line would need to turn, or where it would need to go underground, or et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah. And another point to make is, we've been talking about all the planning and early design work we've done. And really the goal for us now is to take the project from yards down to feet down to inches. So when we move along, we get more specific with the design. The cemetery street running issue is one of those design elements that we'll be exploring further, both during environmental and during the actual project engineering phase.
Okay, so there are two of the stops are located within Board 10, I guess at Fourth Avenue, and at Eighth Avenue. There's a very large, proposal for a 28-story building right on the Eighth Avenue, right adjacent to the Eighth Avenue subway station. And I know that they're doing some environmental work now. It's a much larger project than we had even anticipated and 28-story building, and I'm sure that, that'll be part of the environmental review. I just wanted to flag it in case you weren't aware of it, but that's an upcoming project.
Thanks for mentioning it. I'm not aware of that specific building, but generally speaking, this line has a lot of development happening along it. And it's something that we're gonna, consider as we, continue to make this a reality.
And it has been brought to the project team's attention. We're aware of it, and we have kind of on a conceptual level determined it doesn't interfere with the project. But to your point, we do have a flag on that one, so we're aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
Could that be a way of financing the whole project, just having development, have an assessment on any new development such as that, as a 28-story building in the neighborhood, would be a way of financing the station and other connections? This is an idea.
I don't think they'd be too happy.
Yeah.
It's all ahead of the game, right?
I'll just say, it's not property the MTA controls. There are kind of on a more broader level, there are discussions happening with Department of City Planning. Obviously, the MTA is not a land use agency, but Department of City Planning is, and we have regular productive meetings with them to discuss the project and kind of what they're seeing as kind of the future land use patterns for the area.
Any other questions?
Finance.
Sorry, Larry, go ahead.
In certain cities, they finance development, from transit projects from the development that it incurs. So it's sort of like a little bit off the topic, but this is an idea.
I just want to revert back to one of my earlier questions is when you transfer between IBX and the regular MTA, I suppose, like conventional rail, like, is there like an additional cost to that? Like, is that part of the plans already? Or is it part of the same, like, you can just transfer between two different lines in the regular MTA?
Right. So, again, the environmental review process is going to look into that. It's going to look into fare questions in terms of, how the fare is going to be paid, where is the fare going to be paid, et cetera. We have a lot of open questions about how this is going to operate still. Generally speaking, the goal is that everything will be connected through Omni, right? Our agency has made a serious commitment to Omni as our new fare payment system, and we're going to continue to make sure that people are going to be using Omni and they'll be able to transfer with Omni from any of our New York City Transit station to an IBX station to a bus, however people want to travel.
Yeah, I guess I just want to highlight the fact that you mentioned, 30% of the people within this corridor and a little beyond this corridor, right, are below the 150% of the poverty line, right? Not the medium income, not anything like that. Like above the poverty line, 150. They're below the 150% of the poverty line, like the complex said. But that's a lot of people, and so this is a very low income route of Brooklyn and Queens, and so. I mean, I would just pay like additional heed to that, without having to pay two different fares to transfer, to your job or something.
It is an excellent point.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I see one comment.
Dan, go ahead.
Just don't know if that relates.
No, it's just an email.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, in the chat, there's the IBX website, mt.info/IBX.
Nick, would you
Yeah.
mind giving an update on the cleanup that we're doing along our portion of the corridor?
Yeah, so this is, let me start by answering this question by saying that this is not related to the Interborough Express project. However, it is a question that's related to the existing right-of-way. So it's understandable that it would be part of this conversation. So just to give the room a little bit of background, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the line is currently owned by Long Island Railroad and operated by New York and Atlantic Railway. New York and Atlantic Railway is responsible for the maintenance of the line, and we've gotten a lot of, we've seen photographs both from the community board and from local elected officials of, garbage, refuse, graffiti, etc. Poor conditions along the right of way. So what I can say is that we've had, members of CB10 and CB7 were gracious enough to host us for an interagency briefing about the issue. Right now, I can tell you that MTA Police is going through the line right now to handle some encampments that we have on the line. It is an impediment to the cleaning process, unfortunately. And so once MTA Police finishes their sweep, which is happening, I think it's this week and next week, then we can proceed with moving forward with cleaning. I've heard from Community Board 10 that you're looking for like a very specific schedule in terms of some sort of routine maintenance. I hear you. It's something that we're working on. I can't give you an answer to that at today's briefing, but it is something that is definitely on the radar of everybody here at MTA. And hopefully we'll have an update, a more specific update for you soon.
Right. Thanks, Nick. Any other questions?
Yeah, Carmen has her hand raised.
I don't know
Oh,
which way.
Carmen?
Hi, one thing I kept thinking about was my entire life living in Brooklyn, having to go to Queens was always a dreaded trip. Any idea how many cars you could possibly eliminate if people don't have to drive back and forth?
That is a good question, Jordan. I don't know if you're still here, but
Yes,
do
I can
do
take
you know?
a shot at that.
Yeah.
I won't be able to give you a specific number. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'll tell you how we kind of look at it. The metric that we look at is what's called vehicle miles traveled, so VMT, and it's the reduction in vehicle miles traveled that we quantify to kind of evaluate a project. So, that number, and again, I don't know the number off the top of my head. It's a lot, and we look at it on an annual basis. I know it's in the tens of millions, and that's miles, not trips, but it's miles traveled in a car reduce. Because you're getting people out of their cars and putting them onto IBX. It's a significant number. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
No,
We'll see if we can find it and we'll email it to you.
Sure.
I also wanted to add a comment that this line also like very much so helps connect the Asian neighborhood in Sunset Park, right near like 8th Avenue to Flushing a lot more directly. I'm sure you heard that through some of the, I know there was one that was at Weedy that was in Sunset Park. You probably heard those kind of comments there, but like that, like very much so directly connects those two neighborhoods. So it'd be like much appreciated there.
We did have a question about will the IBX along the lines, will there be city bike connections?
So City Bike is a program that's run by New York City DOT. Of course, we're always in constant communication with our friends at DOT. We would, of course, love whenever DOT and us can work together to provide more transportation options for people, we're excited about that. So where it makes sense and where we're able to, we would love to have City Bike at the IBX stations.
Okay.
I have an answer for you on vehicle miles traveled. We are reducing 72,600 daily vehicle miles traveled.
Wow.
That's crazy.
A lot of people I deal with live in Queens, and
72,000.
it didn't take
All right.
anymore.
I believe it. I believe it.
Too long.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff.
All right.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments? Last call. All right. Thanks, Nick, and thanks, Jordan, for joining us tonight. We hope to hear from you at the end of the year after EIS is done.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. And again, if you have any questions or concerns about anything MTA related, I'm your point of contact, so feel free to reach out to me anytime. We're always happy to come to committee meetings to talk about any of the many projects that we have going on. So thanks for giving us some time. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right, everyone.
I think that's the agenda for tonight. Any motion to close? Any other comments, questions, anyone wants to mention?
All right, thank you all.
I gotta go back to bed.
Okay.